And now for our plenary session, a very timely and compelling topic. What are we waiting for? Investing in women is just good business. Despite overwhelming evidence that investing in women is good for the bottom line and for society, we are not seeing change at the pace or the scale we need to build an equitable, sustainable global economy and planet. Our speakers today have even seen firsthand the business benefits of investing in women. They understand deeply that investors and companies alike must prioritize the value of an inclusive economy that empowers and advances women in addition to men. Nancy Green, President and CEO of Athleta and a trustee of the Gap Foundation Board of Trustees, as well as its Sustainability Board, will share why women's empowerment is central to Gap Inc.'s business strategy. For its direct employees to the millions of women across the global supply chain. She's also the executive sponsor of Gap Inc.'s Women in Leadership Business Resource Group. Cecily Joseph, Vice President of Corporate Responsibility for Symantec Corporation, will share her reflections on gender diversity in the male-dominated industry of cybersecurity, as well as her experiences from working on diversity and women's empowerment at Symantec and across the tech industry. And their conversation will be moderated by our very own Ceres Senior Director of the Company Network, Amy Augustine. Amy's background and experience in human rights, diversity, and gender equity spans more than 15 years. And as I told her before, I didn't even think she was old enough to vote. She's been leading our Ceres Company Network, and she brings this expertise to our members, ensuring the integration of these critical issues into their core business strategies. And so now I would like to invite our speakers to the stage. Nancy Green, Cecily Joseph, and Amy Augustine.
Welcome to the stage. Thanks to both of you for joining us today, and thanks, Dawn, for the great introduction. I wanted to just take maybe 60 seconds to give some framing on why we're talking about this issue at the Ceres conference. I think with the advent of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, increasing attention by investors, businesses, consumers, and with millions of women standing up for their own rights, we have more attention being placed on issues such as equal pay, equal opportunity, the advancement of women within executive offices, within boards, and within the global supply chain. But there is still so much work to do. Despite an increasing business case, despite global recognition that advancing and investing in women does make strong business case, we are not seeing change at the scale or the pace we need. It might surprise you that women make up half the world's population. They do 2/3 of the world's work, yet they own less than 1% of the world's property, and they only earn less than 10% of the world's income. So we've got a long way to go to achieve equality. When you think about Ceres' work on issues like environment, water scarcity, and labor and human rights, it's also important to consider that women are disproportionately affected by the impacts of climate change and resource scarcity, and they do have a unique role to play in advancing and identifying solutions. But in order to do that, they actually have to have a seat at the table. They're not going to be able to bring innovation, to bring ideas, to help solve these urgent global challenges unless they actually have a voice and a seat at the table. So today we want to hear from Nancy and Cecily about ways that they are working within their companies and their colleagues within their companies are working to actually move the needle on these issues, and also to really think about what each of you in the audience can do when you go back to your places of business, because it's going to take us all to create this change. So Cecily, I'm going to start with you. It's kind of crazy to think that it's been over 12 years since we first started working together on issues of gender equality. I was at Calvert Investments. We created the Calvert Women's Principles, and Symantec was one of the first companies to endorse them. We then worked to translate those into the San Francisco Gender Equality Principles, which many companies in the room may be a part of, and then worked with the UN to adapt them to the Women's Empowerment Principles, which 1,500 global CEOs have now endorsed. Yet despite that, despite the reach of the global supply chains of 1,500 CEOs, there's still a significant gap in where we want to be and where we are. So I just wanted to hear from you, when you think back to those late nights of getting these principles developed and out into the world, did you think we would be further than we are now? And what do you think are some of the barriers that still exist, and where, hopefully, are you seeing signs of progress?
So yeah, I was very excited to discover the Calvert Women's Principles, and which later became the Women's Empowerment Principles. And the framework that it offers is pretty incredible. It really gives you a solution to how to integrate gender equity into your business, everything from the CEO engagement to pay equity to how to invest, in the community to supply chain, a whole range of things. And yes, I thought we'd be further along. I thought the numbers would be better, especially in my industry in tech. And we haven't made the progress that I wish that we would. I think we probably started working on this about 10 years ago. And there's been, recently though, what does, I think, make me feel really good and give me hope is that recently I think there's been so much energy around this issue. The area that I'm most inspired by is what's also Principle 10 or 7 of the Women's Empowerment Principles, which is the one about accountability and transparency. And so what we're seeing more and more companies do now is set goals around gender equity, is report on their progress publicly in their CR reports or other diversity reporting. And we didn't used to see that a few years ago. Gone are, a lot of the myths that, oh, we can't set these goals because, we're setting quotas and that's a bad thing to do, or we're putting our company at risk. It's rather the opposite now, that if we don't do this, it's really bad for our brand and we're not making the kind of progress that we need to. So I'm feeling really motivated by that. And I'm also excited about the broad scope that I feel companies like Symantec and many of you here are taking with respect to gender equity and diversity, which is looking at, yes, how do we attract and retain more women in our companies? How do we build that culture where they want to stay and be a part of that? I mean, culture is really everything, right? You can attract and hire as many women as you want, but if you don't have the culture, you're not going to keep them. And then what are we doing around our value chain? What are we doing through our community investments? What are we doing in our supply chain? What are we doing in marketing? How are we really impacting our value chain? And finally, thought leadership. I mean, so many companies are stepping up to be, CEOs are being brave and stepping out with and challenging the rest of us to really make a difference. So, and there are coalitions that people are part of. So I really feel hopeful that we in the last couple of years, we've rapidly started to advance this discussion and are moving forward.
That's great, and good. Always good to end on a hopeful note there. I mean, I think to counter the hopeful note, but hopefully in a way that inspires action, the World Economic Report, the Global Gender Report that comes out every year, the latest statistics showed that a baby girl born today will not see equal pay in her lifetime if we continue to operate at the pace in which we've been moving over the past several decades. In fact, it would take 170 years to close the gender pay gap. And I feel like we all can probably agree that's a little excessive on the timeline, particularly when the business case for diversity does continue to increase. I think it's showing a real business case at the board level, at the executive level, and throughout the ranks. And I know the business case is definitely something, Nancy, that Gap feels very strongly about. It is not a sustainability strategy for you. It is a business strategy, and it's core to who you are. And would love to just hear a little bit about why you think Gap has taken that approach and how you've been so effective at getting it integrated into the business.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been that way at Gap Inc. Gap brand, the founding brand of Gap Inc. was founded equally by Don and Doris Fisher in 1969. Equal amount of money put in to start the company, and they were both very involved in the origin of the company. So, you mentioned culture, and it's always been part of the Gap culture. I think it's evolved dramatically in terms of how we've supported women through the years, but when I started in 1986 as a trainee, I was one of the first, women who was having kids, because I think back then there weren't as many women with families, and we've evolved into an incredibly supportive culture for working mothers, because it's really important for women to stay in their careers and contribute. And I think, specifically for Gap Inc., we've always believed that, diversity and perspective is so much better when it comes from a broader pool of ideas. And why would you want a narrow pool of ideas of only, one type of person? So that's been very foundational. So I've been so fortunate. I also work in an industry where it's 70% women, very different from where Cecily is. And we've always had women in Gap that have been at all levels of leadership. There have always been women brand presidents, women on the senior leadership team, women running stores and all through the ranks. And we're very, very, very supportive culturally for women. A couple other things, 10 years ago, we started the PACE program. That was started by Bobby Silton. And Bobby started the Sustainability and Foundation Board, and that was a business case to work with our factory partners. 80% of the people working in our factories are women. And we saw an opportunity to improve their lives and empower the women who are very important partners for us. So PACE was started, and I know we're going to show a video later, but that's also very important, as part of the culture that Gap Inc. is out there supporting women, who not only are direct employees for us, but very important partners of ours.
So I think you made an important point that in your industry, gender diversity may be a little easier than gender diversity in the tech industry. And when you look at cybersecurity, the gender is really flipped. And so Cecily, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the importance of engaging men as agents of change in this as well, and how you look at these issues within a culture that is the majority of men, I think, probably throughout most of the companies in your industry.
Yeah, so, when you started this and you said, it may surprise you that half of the population is women, and there were a lot of chuckles in the audience. I think when you work in an industry like mine, you kind of lose sight of that, quite honestly. So, in tech, we're probably about, on average, 30% women. And so I think it is, first I'd say the most critical person to engage, woman or man, in any of our sustainability areas, but diversity in particular, or as well, would be the CEO, right? I think it is critical that the CEO is engaged in this and is a champion. And it's been especially challenging, I would say, at Symantec. We've actually had 5 CEOs in the last 5 years. So I'm sure all of you who work with your leadership can imagine how challenging that could be. But I think keeping the CEO engaged is critical. And yes, secondly, I would say keeping men engaged and part of the conversation is very important. When we first started our women's employee resource group years ago, the executive sponsor was our CTO, who was a man, Mark Bregman. He was actually the person who went to the World Economic Forum and came back and brought us the Calvert Women's Principles as, hey, look what I discovered. I walked into this room full of women and they were talking about this. This is so incredible. And that is how we learned about it. So, and I think what's amazing is not only his ability to bring people together, but really to engage other men in the conversation was critical. So I totally support that, yeah.
It's interesting when you point out the CEO change, because I think that one of the reasons when I was at Calvert Investments that we thought board diversity was so critical, one was that we thought it was an issue of sound governance, that in order to really have a well-governed board, there had to be diverse perspectives at the table, but also because there is turnover within the CEO chain, within the CEO ranks. So the board itself needs to be bought into the importance of diversity, because they really can ensure that the commitment to diversity lasts throughout CEO changes. And I know that, you know, the business case again for board diversity is, I mean, I feel like it's made, but it gets stronger, you know, every year. And I know Symantec really took a unique approach to board diversity, really stepping back and looking at the criteria in order to make sure it could effectively attract diverse candidates to the board. So would love to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about statistics. You know, we said 30% women in tech. On boards, I think it's about 20%, but in tech, it's about 14%, and there are many boards that have no women at all. And so our board at Symantec, we had, for many years, we had one woman on the board, and the board decided that they wanted to be much more proactive about adding more women to the board. And so what they decided to do is to approach it a little differently than they had in the past, and they changed some of the criteria. So one of the things they did is they said, we're not only going to limit our board search to CEOs or people who've been CEOs, because if you think about that, that kind of cuts out a lot of women right there, right? Not a lot of women have been CEOs or are CEOs, present company excluded. And secondly, they said, we're not going to look for people who are in our network. You know, just people aren't, because again, you know, you tend to have people in your network. I mean, we know this with our own hiring. It's like, oh, I know somebody, and you know, I know this person, and they tend to be like us, and people that have our values and beliefs and look like us, and that's who we bring forward. And through that, they got 2 additional board members who are just incredible. We added Suzanne Vacherno, who was a 3-star general in the Air Force, and she started the first cybersecurity program for the Air Force. I mean, that makes sense for my company. We're a cybersecurity company. How incredible is that? And the second person we got, her name is Anita Sands, and Anita was the COO of UBS, which is a financial services company, and she was the leader of change management, which, as you can imagine, for my company was really important these last few years. But she's also younger, so she brought age diversity with her, and she's also an Irish national, so she brought, you know, an international perspective. So in the end, we ended up having, you know, that diversity of thought that we needed. And I just want to add one more thing. The other thing that's been really good is not only has our board, and I would say our 3 female board members are critical to this, kept diversity and gender diversity relevant at the board level, but they've also kept it relevant at the company, right, and down into the company. They always make the time to find out how's our progress, what are we doing, bringing up the issues, telling each new CEO that comes in how important this is. So they've been really valuable from that perspective as well. That's great. Yeah.
So I think, you know, one thing that has been critical to getting companies to pay attention to board diversity that maybe otherwise wouldn't is investor action. And there are a lot of investors within the Ceres network, and certainly investors beyond, who have been working on board diversity for a number of years. I think it's taken various forms. It's been shareholder resolutions, direct engagement on issues of equal pay. And I think, you know, most recently we saw the Fearless Girl statue, which I think most of us are aware, appear on Wall Street, and just the attention that got. And again, I think the investors that have been active really understand that diversity is a governance issue, and it is all about sustainable governance. But even with the investor actions that have been happening for well over a decade, I don't think we're seeing what we had hoped to see, both from the number of investors that are asking these questions or that are engaging companies on these issues, nor on the results within companies. So would love to hear from you, Nancy, when you're thinking about the role that investors play and how they could help you, you know, scale your actions at Gap, value you for the steps that you're taking, but also really accelerate this within your industry and beyond. What suggestions would you have?
Yeah, I think, you know, investors have to get involved. You have to ask the questions. You know, you have investor relations meetings all the time with you know, the people in the businesses that you're investing in. Talk to them, ask them questions. What are they doing? What are they learning? How are they seeing, you know, things impact the business and impact things that are less tangible on the short end, but very tangible on the long-term end. You know, everything from employee retention, motivation, engagement, you know, better ideas and impact. You know, these are all really important things to do. What are you learning? What are you finding out? I think investors have to demand it. I think if investors demand this type of focus, more companies will spend time doing this. And it goes even beyond just the issue around women, but it's sustainability to me in the larger sense. What are investors doing to ask the right questions about corporate work that's being done and how they're spending their time well beyond just bottom line business results, but the longer term benefits and why this is so important. I believe very strongly that the enterprise is the solution for these issues that we all face today. And I think if we're all sitting around waiting for government to solve these issues, now more important than ever, it's not going to happen. So, we're a great example of leading through our business, driving these things into the day in and day out of what we do, whether it's investing in women or having a really aggressive sustainability goal that's out there in the environment. And everything we do really matters, and it is really important to customers. And if you think about women are controlling 65% of consumer products spending in the world, trillions of dollars that are out there. Why wouldn't you want more women, in key decision-making roles to shape the conversation around the products that are being developed that women are buying and the messaging that goes out to these women? So to me, it's just, you've got to ask the questions and you've got to be really engaged and push really hard with the investor community, within the investor community.
So when you're about to say something and you think you might regret it later, but
Please say it now.
What I would say is I agree with everything you've just said, and I wonder if sometimes what happens at, investment firms is what happens in companies where, the CSR and sustainability people are kind of siloed in one part of the company and the quote-unquote business people are in another part of the company. Because, when I speak with SRIs, we're talking the same language, right? And I feel really motivated to make change, and I feel very empowered. But I wish that a mainstream investor would talk about these topics to my CFO and to my investor relations team when they're out. I wish that on our analyst call, our earnings call, which is coming up, that someone, a mainstream analyst would ask these questions. What are you doing, Symantec, about gender equity? Is it important to you? What are you doing to move the needle in the company? Because as an investor, we see this as an important issue, and we want to know what progress you're making and how you think about it. So that is something that I would like to see more of, and I think it's very important, and it would have an incredible impact on, I think, companies and the progress that we're making in this area.
Terrific. So there's a good call to action for the investors in the audience. You can say you heard it here directly from Cecily. So Nancy, you mentioned consumers and the power of branding. And I think one of the things that Gap Inc. and Athleta in particular have been so successful at is the power of she and as a platform and really having the programs behind the branding that show that there's credibility there and that you really are coming at this from an authentic place. So I wanted to pause just for a moment and turn to a video. We're going to get to hear from a person who benefited from Gap's PACE program, which Nancy mentioned earlier. And so we'll pause and hear her story for a minute, and then we'll come back and talk a little more about it. So if we could turn to the video.
Emma pengen jadi wanita yang sukses di rumah tangga maupun di luar. Semua orang menginginkan masa depan yang bahagia. Nama saya Emma Wati, umur saya 24 tahun. Saya sebagai karyawan PT Gunung Salak di bagian gudang aksesoris. Dulu saya berpikir perempuan itu lemah. Perempuan itu nggak bisa apa-apa. Perempuan tuh nggak punya hak buat dapetin haknya. Pemalu dalam nyelesain masalah. Waktu pas dulu bisanya tuh cuman nangis, murung. Nggak pernah nyoba buat nyelesain. Dan ngerasa minder aja gitu. Saya lihat orang-orang yang ngikutin program di tempat kerja tuh banyak kemajuannya. Dan saya niat pengen banget ikutin, niat pengen bisa kayak mereka. Dan ternyata saya ngerasain perubahan itu. Tapi sekarang bisa gimana caranya nyelesain masalah. Saya mengikuti PES program, di situ ada modul keuangan, gimana cara pengelolaan keuangan, gimana punya tujuan jangka panjang. Dan di situ saya berpikir, saya pengen punya bisnis sampingan, ya berjualan hijab online. Menurut yang saya alami, jarang banget yang seumuran saya berbisnis. Jarang banget untuk mencari uang tambahan. Untuk kedepannya, saya sangat berharap banget bisa meneruskan bisnis hijab saya. Nggak cuman buat di sini, pengen nyampe ke luar kota. Saya pengen jadi contoh buat semua wanita di Indonesia. Kalau cewek tuh bisa loh nyari uang sendiri, nggak harus ngandelin laki-laki gitu. Saya seneng.
So I think it's pretty amazing to see the impact that the programs have. I think we often read about programs that companies have. We, imagine what the impact and the outcomes could be, but to see firsthand Emma Wati, starting out and saying, she was shy, she had no confidence, she didn't think that she had agency to have her own rights, to participating in this program and coming out with confidence and starting her own business and really, coming up with her own entrepreneurial skills. It must be really rewarding to see firsthand the impact that Gap Inc.'s PACE program has, and I know that Imawati is one of many. I know that Gap Inc. is trying to reach 1 million women and young girls as part of this program, and so would just love to hear from you a little more about the program and why you think this program is having such a catalyzing effect on these young women and girls.
So now you know why I love working where I work. Spent almost 3 decades at Gap Inc. for this very reason, that business can and must be a force for good. This program was started 10 years ago with, under Bobby Silton's leadership. And I think we have put 50,000 women through to date, and we just committed to, in 5 years, we will have 1 million women go through the program. It is, I travel all over the world and I see a lot of factories, and I've seen many, many factories through my almost 30 years of being in this business. And, this is all about self-confidence and all about, making sure that women understand the opportunity and the potential they have and giving them the right basic life skills, training, and education. And that's what the program is. It's the women go through a series of just basic financial training, life skills training, personal health training, and it gives them the confidence. They come out, you see Amawati, the confidence and the self-esteem. And I think, whether you're working in a factory, in somewhere far away, or you're starting your career here, I think for a lot of women, it is all about confidence and how we can help each other and lift each other up and give each other those resources to build that confidence. So this program has been incredibly successful because of the core curriculum and what it does. It builds self-esteem, confidence, and you can see that it's been very, very powerful. We're in the middle of our vendors are all here visiting Gap Inc. right now this very same week, and I was talking to some of the factory owners and managers yesterday, and they were all telling me that more and more women want to go through this program because they see the other women and what comes out on the other side. And Amawati is an amazing example of that, starting her own business and realizing that she can have economic freedom and independence. And I think this is all about providing that for women, the economic independence. They don't have to depend on somebody else, building confidence and self-esteem. And so to me, it's just the beginning of, I think, what we can do. And I know that we'll want to greatly exceed our 1 million woman goal over the next 5 years.
Yeah, and I think what's amazing is, you're looking at the women directly touched, right? The women that have directly participated in the program, but realizing the impact goes well beyond that, because when they go back into their families and into their communities, they're able to share what they've learned. Other women are able to see their confidence, and I think, that's when you create a wildfire, right?
Yeah, it starts with a woman, it then goes to the family, and it spreads throughout the community. And I always use the term, it becomes a virtuous cycle of prosperity and, positivity. So why wouldn't you want to spread more of that around the world?
Amen. So Cecily, I think in a very different way, Symantec has a program that is also about skills building and confidence building and really providing that opportunity for employees who maybe wouldn't have had it otherwise, for, women and men who may not have had it otherwise. And your SC3 program, I feel like, in a very similar way, yet different because it's located here, really does provide some of those same skills. So we'd just love to hear a little bit from you about why you started this SC3 program and the impact that you're starting to see it having.
Yeah, so the SC3 program stands for the Symantec Cyber Career Connection Program, SC3 for short, and it is a program focused on the concept of shared value, where we look to bring more people into the cybersecurity field. So if you think about cybersecurity today, cyber risks are everywhere. They're a global issue, obviously, and they're just getting worse. Our recent elections and elections around the world is an example, but what's happening to us in our personal lives as well. And this costs companies millions of dollars. There is a shortage of workers in the space. So if anybody is looking for a career path, I'm telling you, cybersecurity is it. It is growing at 12 times the rate of non-cyber jobs, and 3 times the rate of, so tech jobs grow at 3 times the rate of traditional jobs, and cyber is growing at 12 times the rate. So they're estimated to be about 1.5 million cyber job openings by 2020. So there's definitely a need, and there's a need for our partners. So Symantec is a consumer company. It's for Norton. We just recently acquired LifeLock, but our primary business is enterprise, right? So we work with hopefully Gap and lots of large enterprises, and they need people to understand and to work in their cybersecurity departments, right? In their InfoSec departments. So huge issue there. There is a shortage. There's an underemployment of youth and young people in the United States. So for white people, it's about 10%, Hispanics, it's 12%, black people, it's about 20%. So we have a youth unemployment issue. So what we looked at, and let's not forget diversity, which is key to this. The representation of women in tech, I think we talked before, is very low. It's about 17% women in tech who do traditional tech jobs. So not that they work in a tech company or do an HR, but I'm talking about an engineer or a computer scientist. So in the cyberspace, it's about 10%, right? So really low percentage of women. So the Symantec Cyber Career Connection works with underrepresented and underserved young adults and veterans to bring them, train them, certify them, give them internships, and get them into jobs in the cyberspace. And we partner with nonprofits across the US to deliver the training, and then we partner with our own partners, our customers and partners, to actually hire folks. And along the way, we've hired a couple of really great ones ourselves.
And we are lucky enough to have one of the participants in the SC3 program, Diana Schaefer, join us today. We didn't have quite the geographic logistic challenges with Emma Watty, so Diana is able to join us, and we will be able to hear directly from her. So Diana, I would love to just start to hear a little bit about your experience both in the SC3 program and then the opportunities that you feel you have had since graduating from the SC3 program.
So after I graduated high school, I really wanted to get into computers, and I had this career path, but it was very difficult to go to school and balance my job and everything. And I was introduced to the SC3 program, and they really helped out with supporting and educating, and they actually put me into an internship with Symantec. And I got put on a team that was really helpful, and they taught me everything I needed to know. They didn't look at me like that I didn't know what I was doing or I was very entry level. They gave me a lot of stuff. They saw that I was absorbing it, and I exceeded. They noticed.
That's great.
You know, one thing I wanted to add is that one of the things I'm really proud of in this program is that the percentage of women that are graduating is probably about 30%. So we're seeing about 30% women come out of the program and about 75% people of color. So it's actually producing some really great results.
That's great.
Yeah.
How are you, coming out of the program and thinking about then what happens next? How do you move from what you're going through into really strong, continued growth and also the retention of these amazing women?
Well,
So after I graduated from the program, after getting hired, one thing that I really wanted to do was keep reaching out to people I knew, young adults, women and men that just need a little push. That's what I strive to do, is just give back and to support people young in age and let them know that there is a place to go. And cybersecurity as a whole is very huge. Currently I'm studying for a certification, and it's about 1,500 pages long, and it's going to take me a long time, but once I get this, I'll be set.
That's great.
So are there any recommendations you would have for other companies on ways they could attract candidates like you to their places of business or to their industries?
Just letting them know that you don't have to be really educated in technology. I know the basics of computers, and going into this program, the teams that take you in, they definitely know that you don't really know everything, and the program supports you to learn. And yeah.
And Cecily, how do you think having some of the graduates of the program has helped contribute to the culture we were talking about, right? The importance of actually creating a diverse culture within the company in order to not only recruit, which you did, but also retain great candidates and great employees like Diana.
Yeah, so I'd have to start off by saying that the intent of the program was not for Symantec to go out and create lots of future employees for Symantec. The intent of the program was to create and help bring talent to our partners and our customers and to the industry. But obviously we need great talent too. And one of the, I think, side benefits is Symantec, even though we're a tech company and we're in Silicon Valley, we don't, we struggle a little bit with demographics as far as bringing in a younger generation to the company. So we have all kinds of programs, a lot of texts about how do we attract millennials, and we go to, seminars on it, and we study it, and we try to figure it out. And so this program, I think, also has given us a great opportunity to bring some great young people into the company who I think are bringing a different perspective and that's diversity also, and is helping us as well.
Yeah. And I think, we continue to hear that millennials have a very strong interest in working for companies that are committed to sustainability, of which diversity is a key piece. So I think it also can be that virtuous cycle where you're bringing in employees to a business that actually cares about the issues that they care about.
Oh, agreed. I'm sure Diana wouldn't even have taken the job had we not had a great sustainability program.
So I know we have a few minutes left, and wanted to really hear from each of you some final thoughts. I think we've talked a lot about a lot of issues today, a lot of opportunities, a lot of ways that companies can be involved, a lot of ways that investors can be involved. But as you're really thinking about, everyone in this audience and what one thing you might want to leave them with as they go back to their places of business. What one action could they take to really help us accelerate this change? What would it be? And I'll start with you, Nancy.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started with the culture conversation. I think, you know, you have to own it. You have to own it, and you have to believe in it. You have to believe that this is the right thing to do for business. It's the right thing to do to solve these issues of our times. And, you know, start, you know, really creating the environment that sets the right culture and the right tone. And that's you need role models. You know, you can't say one thing and do another. You know, people have to really live and breathe, you know, this. And you have to, so you need role models, you need people that are willing to mentor other women, help make sure that, you know, they have the confidence they need and the support they need to continue to, you know, challenge themselves in their careers. And, you know, flexibility is really important too. We didn't really talk about that, but flexibility is key, you know. You want women that are amazing to be able to go to their child's doctor's appointment when they need to and not think that that's weird because they have to leave at a certain time. And so I think just, you know, opening your mind to a whole new way of working and what's possible and create an environment that attracts incredible talent, a culture that, you know, inspires and empowers incredible talent and that can retain incredible talent. And that really takes commitment and people who live and breathe this. You can't fake it. It has to be true. You can't. You know, it has to be really authentic. That is the thing I am most proud about. You know, running Athleta, being inside of Gap Inc., you know, under the mission that is all about empowering and supporting a community of women to realize their unlimited potential through health and wellness. That we live and breathe that, and we're well supported by Gap Inc. So I would say just own it, live it, and set the right culture and support it, nurture it.
Yeah.
So I would just pick up on that. I agree on the mentoring and sponsoring. I think everybody here should think about how you can mentor and sponsor a woman either inside of your organization or outside, and distinguish between the two. You know, sponsorship is very different. Sponsorship looks like this. You're in a meeting, you have the power, and you say, wow, do you know that Cecily Joseph? She's great. You know, and everybody's like, who is that? I need to know that person. That's sponsorship, and that really helps move people along. I think also as you're hiring, you know, we all hire or influence hiring in our work, demand diverse slates, right? Demand that women are part of your slate of talent that you're looking at. You don't have to hire them, but you at least need to be interviewing a diverse candidate pool. I would say support investment in women and girls' education. Support the pipeline globally, right, of the next generation of girls and women today through education. And finally, I would say use your sphere of influence to support gender and diversity. Don't just talk about it. I recently, Frida Kapoor said something that really resonated with me. She said, you know, it's really important that you illustrate diversity. So, don't talk about it, but show it. Show it in your panels. Show it in your website. Show it in the way that you, when you're having a conversation, how you weave it into the conversation as an illustration to show that it's really a part of how you think, and that, hey, everybody should think this way. It's really important. So I know that's not one thing, but those I think are
happy to have the list.
Yeah.
Diana, anything you'd like to add?
I would just say invest in the youth, invest in the younger, underprivileged kids young adults that really want a chance and really want to learn and get ahead in life. Sometimes they just need that push, and they can be the best talent that you might think that you could have gotten.
Yay. Yay, well said. So I hope that you have found this conversation as meaningful as I have. I think, you know, we started at the top talking about the importance of women in addressing the urgent challenges facing us all, whether we're talking about climate change, resource scarcity, or just basic human rights within your workforces, within your supply chains. I think what it comes down to is we're really needing to unleash the power of women, the power of she. We need to empower women, young women, women that have been in their career for a while, women that are leading businesses, all women as agents of change, recognizing that we each have a voice and we each have something to contribute, but we need to be given a seat at the table. When I look around at the audience out here, we have the constituencies that are needed to make this happen. We have business, we have investors, we have civil society. It's us finding ways to collaborate, to work together, to learn from each other. I think we've talked a lot about success. We recognize there are a lot of challenges. This is not easy work, or we'd already be there. So as you're going about your time at the Ceres conference, I really would encourage you to reflect on this, and as you're talking to people, think about where there might be opportunities to share a success story. Where might there be an opportunity to talk with somebody about how you navigated a barrier, or where can you identify a partner that would help you scale change? I think that I heard this metaphor a while ago about thinking about change like a patchwork quilt. It's going to take each of us contributing our own piece of the quilt in order to create a beautiful tapestry and really give something that is going to keep us all warm, keep us all safe, and really show the creativity that we each have to bear. So I hope that you can walk away with some ideas, and really want to thank you and thank the panelists today for sharing their stories. So.
Good job. Thank you, Diane.